We're talking about the worst solar markets if you're selling over the phone. Hey, welcome guys back to another video on the best solar channel on the planet. My name is Ivan and I help people start and grow an extremely profitable solar business selling over the phone and achieving location independence. All right, so if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. Now I want to point it out, this video is only for people that are looking to sell over the phone and from a distance. What do I mean by the worst markets to sell solar in? Aren't they all the same? Well, no. They're not all the same. And the reason why, guys, is because when you're selling over the phone, you have to generate leads. Especially if you're feeding a team, you're not going to be able to do that organically. You're going to have to obviously invest money into advertising and stuff like that to get you leads, which is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, that's what we do. And that's the right way to grow a solar company. If you're relying on anything else, right, referrals are great. They're not consistent. And if there's 1 month left with no referrals, what do you think is going to happen to all your good salespeople? They're going to leave because they're like, dude, I got 6 kids at home. You know, I got to feed them. So what do? Well, you have to make sure you feed them with leads. And to be able to feed them with leads, you're going to have to fill their calendar with appointments that are basically cheap to acquire or relatively low cost to acquire. And so when I reference to the worst solar markets to sell solar in, I actually mean what are the most expensive markets to sell solar in. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Actually, you'll be surprised. I have 2 specific locations that I can give you right now that are basically off the top of my head. I don't have to think about it. I can just name them. They're just bad, okay? And it just doesn't work. Now, if you have a ground team and you're door knocking, absolutely, by all means, you can make a lot of money there, right? I don't want you to take this the wrong way. You can also make a lot of money if you're selling in that market and you're generating your leads online, but it won't be the best bang for your buck. Obviously, the reason why you're in business and the reason why you're doing remote selling is because you want to get the best bang for your buck and make the most amount of money. So, if you want to make the most amount of Benjamins, you're going to have to be smart about the way you utilize the marketing spend of yours to fill up your guys' calendar. So without further ado, let's get right into the market. Now, the first market that I absolutely despise when it comes to generating leads and doing any type of selling over the phone is Florida. And the reason for that is because, yeah, I know a lot of people are sitting there thinking, well, actually, Ivan, isn't that the Sunshine State? Isn't Florida one of the best markets for solar? But not if you're doing what we're doing. First of all, if you do your research carefully, you realize that in Florida, that's the state with the most amount of elderly people that cannot even qualify for the tax credit. And so you get a lot of those and a lot of hillbillies with low credit score, and it just doesn't work. We've tried it multiple times on a few occasions. It doesn't work. Do not try to go to Florida, okay? Oh, maybe I'll make a video about what are the best markets to sell solar in, but for now, we're talking about where not to go. So Florida is definitely a no-no on the list. You should avoid it at absolutely any cost. And the simple reason is there's much better markets to put your money. The second market you want to avoid if you're selling over the phone is the state of Nevada, and more so Vegas. Like when somebody comes on board with us and like, I want to run a campaign in Vegas, can we try it out? And I'm like, here we go again. I said it so many freaking times. That's one of the worst markets you can go to. Why would you do that to yourself? Even if you're there, it doesn't actually make a difference, because if you're generating your leads online, the fact of the matter is that Vegas, it is very, very, very saturated. It's a great market for solar. So I know a lot of you out there, skeptics, will look at this video and be like, no, Ivan, that's not true. Well, actually, Vegas is a great market for solar. Like, dude, listen, I understand. I know the market pretty damn well, right? So I know Vegas is pretty good. But when it comes to generating leads and filling up an actual team's calendar or even your own calendar, it could be pretty pricey. And so you're going to want to avoid that at all costs. Now, if you're there and have a ground team, I know plenty of people that make a lot of money that are on the ground. But I have nothing to do with door knocking, and so I'm not going to talk to you about door knocking at the end of the day. If you want to do things remotely, there's plenty of other markets, plenty of other states for you to focus on. You don't have to go to one of the most saturated markets and most expensive and try to do something there. Like, trust me when I tell you that. You want to avoid that at all costs. Lead cost is extremely expensive. Now, I understand why the competition is pretty high, because 7 to 14 day installs, I mean, come on, who doesn't like that? Of course, you get paid pretty quick, and that's why there's a lot of competition, right? And there's a lot of people are undercutting each other, and it's an ugly picture. I'm pretty sure you get the point by now. Avoid those two markets at all costs. Now, for the rest of the markets that aren't going to be suitable for what we do, there's nothing that's going to come close to those two markets right there. So you don't have to worry about missing an opportunity in these two markets, because the reality is you don't want to sell there. Now, I have a good rule of thumb that I like to follow when I choose my markets and where I want to go. First of all, I want to check the utilities. I want to see if they're pro solar. You'd be surprised. There's like cartel, like literally utility cartel in some of these states that are not pro solar. Like, you'll be surprised. Like, for example, there's a lot of co-ops in Texas that don't have the same buyback rate. They're not pro solar. And what do I mean by that? It means that if the customer goes solar, they're not going to get the ideal one-for-one buyback rate in which it would make sense for the homeowner to go solar, and it will be less than that. They'll be getting paid half of what they're generating, which makes no sense. And so you gotta do your research. Don't just get into a market because you're like, okay, well, that's a virgin market, I'm gonna go there. Well, hold on. You have to do your research, and you have to do your research and find out, hey, what are the good markets? And you can actually find that out on Google. For example, the best way you can possibly do it is this. If you have a state in your mind that you've picked it, you're like, okay, I want to try this state. The first thing you want to do before turning on any ad campaign to generate leads, you want to look at, hey, what are the utilities? What are their policies? What is the install time? Actually, I don't really worry too much about the install time. I just worry about their policies, and I want to know if they're pro solar and what their buyback rate is. Because if they don't like solar, man, they're going to make it a hell for the homeowner to do that. So actually, a lot of people, what they do in Texas is a great state for solar, but what they do in Texas, a lot of these co-ops, because there's like hundreds of them, probably thousands, experienced solar reps help the customer make the switch to another utility that they could sign a contract with that would allow them to go solar and get the good buyback rate, right? So a lot of people do that in Texas. But what I'm saying is sometimes that's not going to be a possibility in a given state that you've chosen you want to work in. So you have to pay attention and make sure that you're aware of what's going on in that state. Because if you start generating leads, you're like, okay, that's a virgin market, I'm going to try it out, right? People might be like salivating over solar. They might want it pretty bad. But if they don't get the good buyback rate, if they don't get a complete offset on their bill and save money, then it means they shouldn't go solar. Now, the second reason, after the utility, once you've understood, okay, what's going on here, are these companies pro solar? Are there other companies that I can go with, like Texas, for example, where I could make the customer potentially switch and go with another utility company and basically have them go solar? That's a possibility? Yeah, sure, whatever. You can actually do that. After you figure that out, the second thing that you want to focus on is their electricity bill. What are their bills? Because if you get a bunch of people with like $50 bills, I mean, you're like, okay, you can't really help them there. You gotta focus on markets that people are paying more, like markets in California where the cost per kilowatt hour is pretty damn high. So you want to focus on markets where people's bills aren't that cheap, so that when you do send them the proposal, it makes sense for them to go solar and they could see a saving on their bill. So anyway, guys, that's for the solar markets that you shouldn't go to. Maybe I'll make a video on the solar markets that you should focus all of your efforts in. I have a special training down below that explains more about how to set up your business in a way that where you can be literally working from anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, selling over the phone and achieving location independence and building your entire business that way. Check it out, completely free. It will blow your mind. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sticking right to the end of this video. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do. And if you like the content of this video, give it a thumbs up. Now, if you have someone else that like, okay, my friend's also thinking about getting into solar, well, tell him where you're getting the goodie. So anyway, guys, appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you again in the next video.